How are all you car aficionados doing? You've probably seen the bearded dieselmen in action as they restore junk trucks. Firebrand Diesel Dave was well known for his monster trucks, stunts, and relationship with Heavy D. He was also a TV personality for the Diesel Brothers, brand of diesel power gear, including Even Those. But underneath all the glory, there was an unseen outsider who had been overlooked multiple times. This is how the warnings regarding the man went unheeded, post-Dave Brothers concert and litigation life. Still, other people spoke up while we stayed quiet, raised their voice. It was all over when the Diesel Brothers showed up. In a press release for 2023, Spark Motors revealed their plans to end the show and return to their independent content production roots. But starting in June of 2025, Auto Guide, it was stated that the brothers Diesel had opted to pursue a new venture named Scrapyard Kings. On the show, teams compete in do-it-yourself challenges utilizing recycled materials. The program's stated goal is to introduce viewers to a format comparable to Junkyard Wars. The individuals take part are split into three groups and given the mission of designing vehicles that succeed in three distinct aquatic, airborne, and land-based difficulties. Next, a starting budget for the purchase of an automobile is distributed to each team. Then they seek out parts and pieces in the junkyard to upgrade their vehicle's abilities to conquer the obstacles. Following that, created their monsters in the comfort of their own homes utilizing the materials they had found. Over 438 subscribers have joined Heavy D's YouTube account, where each episode is posted. On Saturdays, it is broadcast for the most part. On this occasion, viewers are skeptical yet hold out hope for top-notch work by the Diesel siblings. Diesel Dave and his business partner rose to the occasion, overcoming obstacles to produce an aesthetically pleasing and legally compliant product. We continued to disregard the many cautions that were sent our way. One member of the Diesel Brothers, Diesel Dave Kiley, stood out from the start, as more than just a mechanic who has an unhealthy obsession with big rigs. He became famous as a representative of the Diesel Brothers, a legendary comedy duo that never failed to lighten the mood and make the spectators feel like they were a part of the team. Still, a man was hard at work behind the scenes, trying to promote the Diesel Brothers, quickly and more forcefully than anybody had anticipated. But the dangers he faced increased in proportion to his rising reputation. To begin with, the environmental lawsuit put a significant pressure on the company. Diesel was criticized by regulators who claimed that the highlighted trucks, when it came to public roadways, brothers were more than simply outrageous custom builds, they were illegal. Rolling coal pipes and emissions deletions were supposedly more than just a harmless novelty, according to federal and state officials. On the contrary, they marked them as major offenders of clean air regulations. A landmark case since it marked the first instance in which private citizens triumphed over well-known television personalities. It also portrayed Diesel Dave and the Diesel Brothers group as environmentally rebellious, particularly considering that they had already received warnings prior to the case. It sparked inquiries such as, the Diesel Brothers' veracity came into question after the lawsuit, which raised issues such as, were the Diesel Brothers truly aware that their activities were injurious to the environment? Could that be the reason why they had ignored the earlier warnings? Opponents viewed it as an intrusion by the government, but that wasn't how the court interpreted it. So we've decided to put them through a lot of legal and financial stress. What had once appeared like fun racing and creating smoke-belching cars now seemed like a chore. Next, a lawsuit was filed by environmentalists. This trademark dispute. In a scathing attack, the legendary Diesel clothing line accused Diesel Power Gear of pilfering its name in order to boost their own profile. Their focus was solely on sales and brand recognition. For the spectators, the question was whether the Diesel Brothers had muddied the waters between being simultaneously accountable for musicians and copyright infringements. Ultimately, the fashion industry's heavy hitters won out in court. The fact that Diesel exists proves that our beloved show brothers may have infringed their rights. Even Diesel Dave's wit couldn't save Diesel Dave's business from the colossal damages bill that it imposed. Become mushy. Two occurrences were no longer coincidental. A single occurrence would have been an error. Many started to question whether everything was an act to gain their confidence. The one constant, though, was his devotion to save himself. He spends his time away from the controversy and courtrooms gave the public a glimpse of the part of him that they had grown to adore via his performances. As a husband and father, he prioritized his family above all else. In order to cope with the stress that these scandals were putting on him, he relied significantly on comedy. He made laughter his way of life. The individual who kept himself steady by using the same jokes that made people laugh on the broadcast. Warning flags were ever present, even after he paid millions in fines for breaking the law. Environmentalists, attorneys, and critics who had previously warned us about the dangers of Dave's entertainment brand were the ones who delivered this message. That other people and the passage of time would render obsolete. But few cared to listen since, in many people's eyes, Diesel Dave was far from villainous. He showed us that even in the darkest of times, the will to live, the will to rebel, and the ability to laugh despite everything might be enough to get us through, dealing with its most difficult situations. The trademark dispute that contributed to Diesel Dave's already tarnished image. The Diesel brothers, David Kelly and David Sparks, appeared to have no plans to end their legal battles anytime soon, as if the UPH environmental case weren't heavy enough. Nothing to do with their trucks was at issue this time. The Diesel Brothers Enterprises apparel line, Diesel Power Gear LLC, was at the center of the dispute, which centered on intellectual property. That year, 2017, the Italian-style Diesel SPA, a well-known manufacturer of denim and lifestyle goods, filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against Diesel Power Gear in the Southern District of New York. The judgment was based on the Utah-based company's fuel usage. Using the brand on their apparel and equipment, they said, for those who couldn't tell the difference between diesel and diesel power gear, the label caused a great deal of misunderstanding regarding the brands. The brothers Diesel, they said, exploit the name Diesel to trick buyers into thinking their clothes are official Diesel merchandise. Additionally, they noted that Diesel is a well-known and registered trademark that dates back to the 1970s. Diesel Power Gear's applications were dismissed by the United States Patent and Trademark Office following the filing of objection, reflecting the office's firm position with Diesel SPA. The Diesel brothers' business persisted in utilizing the moniker in spite of this ruling. Ultimately, the U.S. District Court determined that continuing to use the name in question may be classified as intentional infringement rather than an accident. The Diesel brothers, Diesel SPA, and the court presided over by Judge Jennifer Roshan finally reached a settlement after years of litigation on October 24, 2022. Petro Gear has infringed upon Diesel's trademark, but they couldn't agree on a settlement figure. Diesel said it was due $59,100,000 in net revenues from Diesel Power Gears since the business had failed to provide evidence of any deductible charges or expenses. Regarding the bet, the Diesel brothers argued that the company should only keep a portion of its sales for clothing and accessories in order to calculate its profit after deducting expenses. In May of the following year, 2023, the court determined that it would be excessive to award Diesel the entire sum of Diesel Power Gear's profits and rather than that, cut net sales by 80%. Diesel Power Gear was then sentenced to pay a sum of $1,800,000 as damages. It was still a hefty sum to pay, despite being a substantial reduction from the initial $59 million claim. Anyone keeping tabs on the Diesel brothers was aware that settling the fine would indicate one thing: that their continued disregard for prevailing trends was another way they had disappointed the public. For example, they needed to learn to dance to the music they had created since they had disregarded early warnings, pushed boundaries, and continued to do so. Even the most ardent of fans started to doubt the brand's legitimacy at this point. They were being sued for the second time for irreparably copying another brand. Diesel Dave was much more affected by the damage to his reputation. His character traits had been centered around a sense of family and humor, even more so than the heavy D's, which helps to put their clientele at ease and build trust. Nevertheless, that standing was diminished as a result of these litigation. Aftermath of the litigation, the March 2020 court decision has repercussions that extended beyond the brothers Diesel. Because of their prominent television roles, the decision was covered by national news agencies, and the news that they had been fined more than $851,000 for breaking clean air regulations quickly spread. People began to wonder if the Diesel brothers were aware of the consequences of this rulings. They did it all the while praising the air-polluting vehicle upgrades. Proponents of environmental protection contended that intentional pollution posed a grave threat to public health, particularly in Salt Lake City, which was already grappling with inadequate air quality. A group of doctors in Utah, advocates for a healthy environment, emphasized that these infractions were part of a pattern that contributed to harmful levels of nitrogen oxides and particulate matter, rather than isolated instances. Discovery Channel refrained from making any public statements or canceling the show despite the ongoing public disgrace caused by legal and environmental pressure. In a direct manner, the Diesel brothers' reputation as a family-friendly feel-good act was not immune to the lawsuit's reverberations, though. It was impossible to distinguish between the suit creatures and the performers, and people were reading deeper meanings into jokes that were meant to be innocent. Diesel Dave and Heavy D were the subject of relentless criticism and had to constantly defend themselves, often utilizing their social media accounts as a weapon. Nevertheless, their lawyer made every effort to save face. They painted them as creative geniuses who broke the law in novel ways. Their main argument was that a lot of the trucks on display were only concept trucks made for off-roading and not real trucks. They stressed again that they thought what they were doing was perfectly legal. As a means of resolving the issue, the legal team also emphasized their offer to help with emissions abatement. Just one I was anticipating that the boys might be embarrassed or even opt not to come. You were mistaken, the Diesel brothers were nowhere to be seen. Rather, new episodes of their show continued to appear on the Discovery Channel for the entire year of 2022. There was no break in the brothers' appearances on social media, being used on YouTube and Facebook even. There they demonstrated constructions, performed stunts, and continued to give away their unique trucks. Their devoted following was fractured as a result of their sustained success. Environmental organizations persisted in their criticism of the brothers, claiming that their widespread fame inspired other admirers to imitate the illicit changes. The widespread acceptance of eco-destructive practices was something they saw as a result of celebrity culture. However, there were a few devoted supporters who continued to support the duo, viewing them as innocent bystanders who were unfairly penalized for simply enjoying themselves. Only one item is left, though, that the explanation for the ongoing support could have been their never-ending handouts. No one will ever tell us. The aftermath of Diesel Dave's lawsuit caused a change within him. His previously family-focused personality retreated even further into his shell. More frequently, he used his social media accounts to share more quality time with his family than ever before, often making cameo appearances alongside his children, dogs, and humorous pranks. Despite the brand's history of controversy, he managed to make it appear enticing to its supporters in this way. The oblique caution that escalated into a full-scale court struggle. Nobody seemed to care about the impact that the Diesel brothers' car modifications were having on the Utah environment, but others were more interested about what the brothers did best: pique fans' attention and modify their vehicles. In particular, they had piqued the interest of the concerned more with the environmental impacts of each vehicle. Modification was Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment up. With this goal in mind, they formally cautioned the Diesel brothers on multiple occasions beginning on July 27, 2016. When they persisted back, the information formally notifying the Diesel brothers and Dieselers was contained in the notice letter. Diesel Power Gear and Com were found to have broken federal environmental laws. Still, the Diesel brothers paid little attention to this warning. Another time, Reedzar Law Firm sent a supplemental warning letter on October 3, 2016. Additional infractions of environmental laws were detailed in this letter, particularly those that pertain to Utah's state implementation plan, the Environmental Protection Statute of the state. A few of it was brought to their attention in the letter that they routinely removed and deactivated pollution control devices from diesel trucks, sold defeat devices, parts meant to evade emission systems, and continued to operate and sell modified vehicles that did not comply with emissions regulations. The Diesel brothers persisted with their routines as normal after getting these warnings. Surprisingly, they continued to broadcast even more daring ideas. Because they consistently disregarded the warnings, UPH had no choice but to take extreme action. In the end, they submitted a suit on January 10, 2017. Under the Clean Air Act, they brought a citizen suit against the Diesel brothers, David Sparks alias Heavy D, Diesel Dave alias Dave Kiley, Kenton Hopkins alias The Muscle, Josh Stewart alias Weird Beard, and their associated companies. In addition to the previous claims made against the group, the current lawsuit states that the Diesel brothers were not notified of the infraction more than 60 days ago. But they had ignored it and on making changes anyhow. Their position is that Diesel brothers sought to avoid certain pollution regulations by claiming their vehicles were exclusively intended for off-road or racing use. Nevertheless, UPH arrived well organized. They said that trucks were a problem in Utah's Wasik Front area because they were driven on public roadways. Big business has additional competitors besides the Diesel brothers, subject of the action by UPH. Nevertheless, the Diesel brothers' case garnered the most attention due to their status as beloved media figures. For years, experts from both sides presented their cases in this protracted lawsuit. But UPA still uses its online profile to harm them. They produced recordings and social media posts that proved they had modified the emission systems of trucks used on the street. Heavy Diesel Dave's business partner and friend took to Instagram around the time the litigation began to impact the company. One of his tweets said, "Justice prevailed and we're back in business. We're selling everything. It's the end of an era and the beginning of a brand new one for me. And that means I have to let go of all the stuff I have been holding onto. A federal judge stopped our massive garage sales, but we're selling everything again, hoarding over the previous 10 years. In March 2020, the Diesel brothers were found to have violated the Clean Air Act and state laws by either tampering with or removing the emissions control without proper pollution control measures according to the court's discovery. The ruling was handed down by United States District Judge Robert Shelby. In addition, it proved that they had done so with at least 31 diesel trucks as the lawsuit had asserted, and so UPA had prevailed in its case against not only the Diesel brothers but also other important business officials who were justly held accountable for UPE members, celebrated not only a legal victory but also, according to UPE President Brian Moak, a step closer to clean, healthy air in Utah as a result of the ruling, which upheld hundreds of violations of the Clean Air Act and Utah's state implementation plan. Not only did the decision have an impact on the community, but it also served as a clear warning that the court of law was supreme. The judge characterized the ruling as a triumph for public health protection, the preservation of the rule of law, and the right of citizens to seek punishment from any company that might have similar practices. Commercial activity that disregards residents' rights to breathe clean air. The Diesel brothers were also hit hard by the hefty penalties that came with their victory. In total, they spent over $848,000 on fines and legal fees, with $761,451 going toward federal civil fines. The tampered diesel truck restoration program and $90,000 were directed to Davis County for local environmental remediation programs. The injunction also included an imposed permanent injunction that forbade the team from removing pollution controls or selling vehicles without the necessary controls or equipment, noting that a modified vehicle produced 36 times more nitrogen oxides and 20 times more particulate matter than the legally compliant models. Judge Shelby characterized the conduct as egregious misconduct and underscored that the Diesel brothers financially profited from the alterations, along with their television notoriety and reputation as a brand. He went on to say that if they were ever found in violation of pollution standards again, they would face contempt of court charges. The fines and verdicts gave the Diesel brothers a major financial setback, so they came up with an who had their decision reversed by a Salt Lake City judge.
In late 2021, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals announced its opinion, which affirmed the lower court's verdict and emphasized that UPH had the authority to suit under the Clean Air Act citizens enforcement provision, and to the extent that the sanction was commensurate with the transgression characterized as egregious misconduct. They also rejected the assertions that their immunity from legal responsibility stemmed from their modification or sale of vehicles. Nevertheless, the Diesel brothers remained unwavering and in 2024 received a $225,000 settlement, down payment penalties they were facing. However, even with the victory, their reputation was tarnished, and it altered the course of Diesel sellers' business and television content. Diesel Dave Kiley's ascent to fame. Diesel Dave was born David Kiley on the 17th of June, but the year of his birth is a matter of debate. The location of his birth is also a matter of debate. Some sources place his birth on an Air Force post in Lubbock, Texas, while others place it in Farmington. His family moved to Utah from Texas, according to the articles, and Dave's interest in the military began at a young age, as he was derived from a line of military leaders. His great-grandfather had served in the Army throughout both World Wars. Dave has brought up the fact that his father was a mortar guy in the 99th Infantry during WWI, and that he attempted to enlist but was turned down due to a shoulder problem. His younger brother is a Marine, and he has stressed the need of having first-hand knowledge of the requirements placed on them today. The Army's ability to push itself to its boundaries is truly admirable, and it deepens his appreciation for the service. Dave, who had a lifelong fascination with trucks and an early desire to join the military, was constantly seeking new ways to enhance his vehicle customization talents. One day in church, he encountered Heavy at a single people's gathering of the Mormon Church of the Latter-day Saints in Lake City, Utah. They had intended to meet life companions who would share their Mormon religion, but fate had other plans. It did really give them long-term companions, but not legally married. They began as a lovely friendship that blossomed into a business relationship and a brotherhood. It was one day after Heavy D had invited Diesel Dave to join him and his pals at a en route to the lake. Heavy D made the rookie mistake of filling Diesel Dave's pickup truck with gasoline instead of diesel. As they worked their way to the lake, they started chatting about their goals and ambitions, and they all shared the dream of launching an all-around mechanic store powered by diesel engines. This mechanic shop was to serve the needs of all the pickup trucks, four-wheel drives, and SUVs. Their shared passion for diesel engines and business acumen strengthened their friendship. Kelly was the sales, marketing, and public relations whiz. So with Kiley as the marketing guru and Dave Sparks as the technical guru, they started 3 firms, the first of which was Diesel Sellers. This made it easy for the brand to become apparent to potential buyers. The two co-founded Diesel Sellers in 2008, an online business that focuses on custom truck builds, resales, and parts sales. They primarily sold high-powered performance diesel trucks that they had customized with extreme performance upgrades and eye-catching designs. Initially relying on word of mouth and small-scale classified ads, they quickly embraced and adored social media. Sparks had identified an industrial goldmine, and they collaborated to capitalize on it. They created behind-the-scenes movies documenting the process of restoring the trucks. Moreover, at the conclusion of each transformation, they would upload before and after pictures, as well as videos of the trucks performing their intended function, which went viral on social media and YouTube, and became even more popular after they started giving away trucks as prizes. Fans could only participate in these promotions by buying Diesel Sellers. Consumers could win and possess a fully customized diesel vehicle that the Diesel brothers had painstakingly created and designed by purchasing branded items or automobile parts worth $5 or more from their online store, dieselsellers.com, of making sure that people could actually see and touch the customized trucks they were selling. This promotional event resulted in a flood of publicity, which put them in the spotlight and garnered them attention from mainstream media. It also landed them an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. They were discovered by the Discovery Channel cable network after a television show host saw one of their videos and told his production team he wanted them on his show because he thought they were funny. This show opened doors for them because other people also found them funny. Diesel Dave, Heavy D and two other members of the Diesel Brothers team were approached by the Discovery Channel, who had been scouting them for 2 years due to the fact that the brothers believed the phone calls they were receiving were frauds. Began on January 4, 2016, on the Discovery Channel. The show ran for 6 seasons, showcasing innovation. Participants got the chance to show the world on a larger scale how they created their one-of-a-kind vehicles and how the show's unique blend of lifestyle elements into each weld, paint job, and daring stunt contributed to its rapid success, which in turn helped the group gain even more attention and solidify its place in the hearts of fans who yearned for the trucks and the camaraderie that accompanied them. That it wasn't a staged glamour show but a real depiction of hard work, sweat, and creativity. The show emphasized the importance of working hard, but it also demonstrated that the payoff for working hard was the ability to play hard. For them, that culture meant working long hours in the shop, late nights filled with the sound of grinding steel, rumbling engines, and crazy off-road escapades that put the team's mettle to the test as much as their creations. It was more than just entertainment for them, it was their way of life. Chapter. Each episode had its own cadence, heart-stopping modifications, death-defying stunts, and memorable events. One of those moments involved a shocking accidental fire in the truck. Then, naturally, there was beyond the giveaways, the huge truck prizes that had propelled them to fame. What really struck a chord with viewers was the natural flow of conversation amongst the actors. These were more than just publicity stunts, they were acts of kindness that demonstrated the group's commitment to giving back to the community that had helped propel them to stardom. Their relationship was effortless, they conversed freely, and the vibe in the shop was one of friendship rather than rivalry, and even under duress, tension was replaced with clever one-liners and inside jokes. Diesel Dave's magnetic presence and larger-than-life personality made him an instant fan favorite. His talent for connecting with people both on and off the show was truly remarkable, and the humor was sincere and never forced. It became an invisible thread that connected the episodes, providing thrills and laughter to viewers. The screen gave voice to the dream that had previously seemed so far away, while Heavy flourished in the field of community building. One man brought the charisma, while the other concentrated on growth strategy, using social media to reach people far beyond their initial audience. Screen. In doing so, they drew in more than just fans, they drew in a whole community of believers who felt a part of something greater. However, as is the case with every ascent, the spotlight that had previously magnified their virtues started to reveal their shortcomings. Even though their golden years were brief, they were able to bask in the unwavering support of their fans. Those viewers weren't merely taking in a performance, they were emotionally invested in a tale of camaraderie, aspiration, and the unwavering dedication to a vision that motivated innumerable others to follow their own. At times we embark on endeavors with the best of intentions. However, they may not adhere to legal requirements. This was the case with Diesel Dave, who had captivated his audience with his perspective of a humorous, family-oriented demeanor. Nevertheless, that image quickly faded due to the burden of his 2 most draining lawsuits. I hope that witnessing his triumph over these challenges has also served as an inspiration to you. If you found this video enjoyable, kindly hit the like, share, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this.